And with that, we're going to get started. This is Professor Dirk Pruess, who's agreed to come. He's part of the business department, and he's going to do our session this afternoon on personal finance.
All right. Well, thanks for being willing to be bribed to be here. This session is, I guess, I think about a little bit of a teaser. We do teach, and I'm teaching this year, an interim course on this topic. We don't offer a semester course, but there is all kinds of stuff out there on personal finance. So let's get started. Here we go. Any questions? Thanks for being here. It is literally this simple, guys. I know it sounds stupid, but you know what? This is it. So you want to know a little bit more about how to do that. So we'll spend some time talking about a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to give you kind of a quick drive-by. If you do that, right? If you spend less than you earn, it doesn't matter what you earn, right? You decide to be a missionary, you decide to be a church worker, you decide to be a social worker. It's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you earn and spend, okay? So here's what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a drive-by, so it's going to be quick. If you have questions, though, stop me, okay? Let's have it be a discussion, not just me talking at you. So in personal finance, here's kind of the stuff that we talk about. You don't think about this, but career planning is part of personal finance. Okay? You have an asset, an intellect, skills that God's gifted you with, right? And you're using those to generate income and wealth over time. Okay? Nobody's going to manage that but you. Okay? Your loved ones will impact that, but ultimately, you got to manage your own career. That's one of the most important assets that you have. Financial statements, budgeting. We'll talk a little bit more about budgeting. How many of you guys have ever literally wrote down, what's my personal financial statement? What's my assets? What's my liabilities? I have a couple accountants in the room, so I know some of you guys have done this. That's called your net worth statement, right? You don't have to get focused on it, but it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. We'll come back to budgeting in a couple minutes. Money management, taxes. You don't have to understand taxes, but helpful to know some of the basics, right? You can pay somebody else to do this, right? Just like I can pay somebody else to come and fix my pipes. Right? There's people out there that will do your taxes for you. You don't have to understand that, but to be able to plan a little bit, you should know a few things, right? Enough to be dangerous. Bank accounts. Hopefully everybody in the room has a bank account. Hopefully you're like balancing your checkbook, some basic things. We'll talk some more about bank accounts in a second. Building and maintaining good credit. Now's the time that you have to start to do that. Okay? You guys are now at a point where people are looking at you in your own names for credit. Okay, you will have a credit record out there, and you can go find out what it looks like. I'll talk about that in a sec. Major purchases, stuff you're going to, save for, and how do I go about that? Income and asset protection, otherwise known as insurance. Okay, probably not everybody's favorite topic. But this is how you manage risk. That's what insurance is for, right? It's to pay somebody else to take some of your risk away. There's different types of that, right? Health insurance is basically a risk management tool. Life insurance, okay? And parts of your life, you're going to need some of this. Some of your life, you're not going to need some of this. And so just understanding the basics of that is really what we talk about in personal finance. And then investments, okay? Again, this doesn't have to be complicated. And I'll give you a few little tips here in terms of some things to think about. All right, over your life, you're going to go through cycles of things that you're going to do in personal finance. You're going to be saving for goals. You're going to worry about insurance very differently at some parts of your life than you will at other parts of your life, right? I'm in my 50s. I still have kids at home. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, somebody's going to care. So I need to have life insurance, right? Your first job, you're not married yet. Even if maybe even if you are married, if I'm 22 years old, I probably don't need life insurance. Okay, there will come a time, though, when you're having to have people depend on you, and it will be important. Okay, so that's just an example. There's going to be cycles through your life that you're going to be worried about different things on that last page. So, a couple things that I wanted to spend some time on. What do you do when you walk into the first job, first day of orientation? You're going to spend hours on signing up for stuff like benefits. You're going to make some actually pretty important decisions the first day on the job. Okay? Personal budget. Okay? We're going to talk about personal budgeting. If you haven't done one, now's a good time to start. Good credit. Student loans. Probably most of you in the room are dealing with student loans. We're going to talk about that. Credit cards, and a little bit of investing. Okay, so that's where we're going to spend our time today. All right, so let's talk about the first day of work. You're going to get, hopefully, some suite of benefits. All right, your employer is going to pay you cash, but they're also going to give you some other stuff that matters. Okay, like vacation, insurance, life and health. They're going to help you save for your retirement. You may have some other kinds of choices. Hey, maybe they'll help you pay for grad school. They're fighting for talent, and this is one of the ways they do it, right? This is part of your compensation. So as you look at employers, this stuff matters, right? We're talking about thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars different in the value to you based on what's on that list, okay? So let's go through a few of these that you're going to see that first day on the job. Some companies will offer you what's called Cafeteria Benefits, which basically means instead of saying sign up for A, B, C, and D, we're going to give you a set amount of money and you can distribute it however you like. If you don't think you want much health insurance or you don't need it, okay. If you want a whole bunch of vacation instead, sick days, disability, life insurance, you're going to get a chance to basically pick between all this stuff. That's becoming more popular. Here's one of the most important ones, right? Health insurance. Okay, if you have to go out and buy health insurance, right? You guys are young, you'd be relatively cheap, but would still probably cost you somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a year. Just for the premiums for health insurance, for an individual policy. Okay? Now, nice thing is employers, sometimes they have hundreds, sometimes they have thousands, depends who you work for. They will get together if they're a small business with other small businesses for buying power. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on in the insurance market. But they can buy cheaper than you can, is the good news. And typically, they will pay most of your premiums for you. This is a very standard benefit. Okay, so the most common kind of ratio here is they'll pick up 80 cents on the dollar for that big insurance bill, and then they'll take a little bit of that out of your paycheck every month. Most of them will do that on a pre-tax basis, which makes it even cheaper. Okay, you're going to get a chance to choose usually between kind of what would be called traditional health care plan, which is, hey, doctor bills me, I submit for reimbursement. Some percentage of that is covered depending on, what the issue was, what doctor I go to. There's a whole bunch of different choices there. High deductible plans are now becoming kind of in vogue. High deductible plans are basically health plans where your premiums are significantly lower. So instead of, like for me, my premiums are probably somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. I share that with an employer. I probably pay 20 cents on that. right? So if it's $15,000, right, I'm paying $3,000 a year. So do the math, it's $250 a month, okay? If I take a high deductible plan, that $3,000 a year might go down to $1,000. So much cheaper, much cheaper premiums. But then what they're going to ask me to do is to pay the first X amount. Usually that's $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 worth of payments. It's cheaper for employers. What they will often do is contribute and make the first maybe $1,000, couple $1,000, put it in a health savings account to help you pay for that. So all of this is somewhat new coming out of Obamacare. I'm not going to dwell on it. We could spend hours on just this, okay? It's complex. One thing to be aware of, though, you probably have a choice of a health savings account. Think about that like you do a retirement account. It's like a 401k, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But basically, it allows you to take money out of your check pre-tax and save it, and it's only to be used for health coverage. So when I go to the doctor and there's a deductible, I can use this account, take it out of there to pay for it. The nice thing about it being pre-tax, right, is that the government is subsidizing me. So whatever my marginal tax rate is across all the taxes I pay, so maybe that's 30, 40%, the government's picking that up, basically. Okay? So there's a little bit about health plans. Flexible spending accounts. This is a tax benefit that allows you to put aside money for health and dependent care, again, on a pre-tax basis. So what that means is if I'm making $50,000 a year, right, divide it out, maybe I get paid twice a month, I get so much money coming to me on a regular basis in a paycheck. If I choose to participate in a health care plan, I will say, hey, employer, please take out X amount of money up to, it's not on here, up to either $2,500 for health care kinds of stuff or $5,000 for dependent care. You probably don't have to worry about dependent care right now, but when you have kids and you're in child care, right, that's a really, really neat benefit. Because basically what that means is if I take $5,000 out of my check to pay for my child care, and I was going to have to pay that out of pocket, again, taking that out pre-tax is going to save me 20, 30, 40% of that $5,000. It's a big number. Okay, so the two choices are health care costs and dependent care costs. Now, the only downside of flex plans is you have to use everything you put in. So every year I'll get to choose how much do I want to have taken out of my check. That's going to go into this account. As I need it, I spend out of that account. The problem is if I get to the end of the year and I haven't used everything, it's use it or lose it. Now, usually there's a little bit of a grace period. So typically most employers and the tax law allows them to give you like an extra 3 months to do that, and most employers these days do that. But you have to be a little conservative. You don't want to sort of throw away, too much money because you've rounded up and you've estimated too high. All right, let's talk about a little bit about insurance. People are sort of familiar with life insurance, right? I get hit by a bus, I have a life insurance policy, my dependents get paid a benefit. What you don't tend to think about is a more important insurance benefit than life insurance is disability insurance. The chance of you becoming disabled sometime in your life is much higher than the chance of you dying, quote, prematurely. Okay, it's much higher, like a multiple higher, which means at some point you would have some sort of a health issue where you could not work for a period of time. So disability insurance is really important. Most employers allow you to provide a benefit. Sometimes they're doing this out of their pocket as part of the benefits package. So a lot of employers, for example, will pick up, I'd say the standard benefit would be like 2 times your salary. So if I make $50,000 a year, they would give me a life insurance benefit of $100,000. They're just buying the policy. I don't have to do anything. All right? It's a very nice benefit. They'll also often let you buy more on your own because, again, you can buy that cheaper through your employer than you can on your own. Disability, same way. Often they'll provide some disability. And in disability insurance, what you're buying is income replacement. So if I make that $50,000 a year, how much of that do I want to be able to replace? And again, because the disability benefits are tax-free, so you don't typically have to replace that whole $50,000. You probably have to replace 60 or 70% of it. Okay? There's other kinds of insurance sometimes that they'll provide, allow you to buy personal umbrella, which is not something you probably have to worry about when you don't have a lot of assets. As you grow some wealth, if somebody sues you, you got a problem. A personal umbrella policy provides benefits for that and coverage for that. All right. Let's talk about retirement. This is one of the health insurance is probably, I would say, number one benefit and of importance. This one's kind of right up there with it. So as you look at jobs, read the fine print, ask the questions about what does your employer provide for retirement benefits. Today, the world has gone over the last generation from what used to be called defined benefit plans, or what you would hear the word pension plan. So if you work for one company long enough, they'll provide for your retirement at some level. It depends on how much earnings you have and how long you're at the company. Back in the 80s, early 80s, Congress passed a law, and it's in the Internal Revenue Code section, 401k. That's why you hear that term. It's named after an IRS code section that allows employers to provide this benefit where you get pre-tax savings can go into an account to pay for your retirement. And so over time, most employers have gone from the old pension plans to now the 401ks. 401k are for for-profit companies. 403bs are for nonprofits. That's the distinction between the two. They work exactly the same way. So if you worked for Calvin College, you worked for a church, you worked for a social agency, you'd probably have access to a 403b. What it does, again, allows you to save money pre-tax, now also post-tax, so I'll talk about that in a second, but to save money, put it into account, have it invested, and have it earn money. So the good news is, if you do it on a pre-tax basis, you don't have to pay taxes. So again, it comes off your paycheck. The government is effectively subsidizing that for you. And the earnings in that account are also not taxed until you retire and you start to withdraw it. Okay? This is called a defined contribution plan. And the reason for that is you, the employer, get to define how much to put in. So you pick how much to save, right? And it's typically done in a percentage of your salary. This is probably the one decision that you will make the first day of your first job that will impact your financial well-being more than anything else you do. Save early is really, really important, okay? Don't think that, hey, when I can afford it, I'll start contributing to my 401k. Do it the first day. Do it before you get your first paycheck, right? Learn to live off what that paycheck is after you save for your retirement and keep doing it. This is just one of those things you should not do. Yes, sir?
What's like typical percentages?
Well, one of the really neat things about 401ks, the benefit that companies usually provide is they will often match what you put in. And it's usually up to a limit. And the most common one is they would match 50 cents on the dollar up to 6% of your salary. So let's, what does that look like, right? So if I make, let's keep using our 50,000 bucks, right? So if I make $50,000 a year, right, 6% of that is $3,000. Okay, so 50 cents on that times 50 cents on the dollar, right, is 1,500 bucks. I will tell you that every employee or every employer will assume that every one of their employees is going to contribute up to that amount. It's absolutely free money. Okay, so if you don't take that 1,500 bucks, you know, nice for your employer, but really dumb for you. Always contribute up to what they'll match, because you'll never get a better investment return, right? If all you ever do is put that kind of in a bank in like an interest-bearing account, which you shouldn't do, I'll come to that in a second, but if that's all you did, right, you're going to get 100% return. If you save $1,500, well, sorry, in this case, you're going to get a 50% return, right? If I save $3,000 in my 401k, my employer's going to contribute $1,500. And they're going to do that every year, kind of forever. Now, some employers are more generous than that, right? This is kind of the example. This is a pretty common one. My old employer used to contribute for everybody in the company $9,000 a year. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't even have to contribute. That's just what they did. So it's all over the map here. Some companies literally will contribute like $2 or $3 for every dollar you put in. Right? Some of the larger, you know, the Fortune 500, a large company, this is a really important benefit and one that they will fund, you know, and that it costs them hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases for a very large company. Yeah, question?
What are some quick advantages and disadvantages between having your own personal Roth account that you personally maximize every year versus maximizing your 401k or company?
It's good to actually, if you can, to do both. The main advantage of this is the company contributing, right? They will provide some education. They'll give you some, you know, investment options and so forth. If you're doing it on your own, you're also kind of on your own in terms of the investments. The benefit is that if you, I guess one of the important things in terms of having both retirement savings in and outside of a 401k is it gives you some flexibility on how do you do some tax planning. Because there's some benefits of putting things that generate income in tax-free accounts, so you don't have to pay that along the way. And put things that grow kind of tax-free. I mean, if you buy, you know, you buy a stock and it goes up, you can control when to sell it. Putting that outside of a tax-sheltered account tends to be a good idea. But in general, you know, if you can do both, it's great. It just, you know, if you qualify on your own as well as under 401k, you know, IRAs are generally set up for people who don't have access to 401k, so the limits are quite low if you have access to a 401k. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So again, this is one of the most important decisions you're going to make, right? Contribute to this, start early. You're not going to miss the money out of your first paycheck. It's your first paycheck. Okay? Yeah.
What happens when you switch employers?
The really neat thing about 401ks is they're portable. Okay, so what'll happen is you'll build up a balance with, you know, ABC company, and 2 years later you switch jobs. Usually you have two options. You can leave it and just let it grow and leave the investment options where they are, or you can roll it over to your new company's plan. And basically what happens is you go to the old administrator and say, hey, I've moved companies, please roll over my plan, write a check to this one. It's a pretty easy process. So that's the nice thing about 401ks. Now, what a lot of people do is they make the mistake that, oh, I left this employer, I have $10,000 sitting in my 401k, oh, let's just take that out. Let's go spend it. That is a really dumb thing to do. For lots of reasons, right? It's your retirement. Leave it alone. Let it grow or send it to the next plan. You also have to pay a big tax if you do take it out. So, you know, in a hardship, yeah, it's money there, it's spendable, but it's a very bad thing to do. And most plans will let you borrow against it if you really need it. That's the way to do it, is to take a loan against it. Yeah.
If like you leave it at your previous job,
Well,
to
you-
keep growing somewhere, or you just
Oh,
wanna have
absolutely.
one
You can have a bunch of different ones. I mean, it's kind of nice to consolidate them. The only reason to really leave it at one place is if they have great investment options, and you went to the next job and they didn't have such good options. They still have a good plan, but I like the investment options at the old one. That's probably the main reason that people leave them in one place. So, yeah.
So how would it continue to grow if you're not making money for that previous, like you're not contributing?
Well, you're not adding to it, but that doesn't mean it's not being invested and continuing to earn, right? So, yeah, you're not adding to it, but it's the main thing is just don't take it out, right? So, now, last thing I'll say about this, and then we got to move on, is don't. The first day when you're filling all this stuff out, they're just going to throw all this stuff at you. This is going to look complicated. Don't not do it because, I don't know I've got this 50 options for investments. I don't know where to put the money. Just get some help. They will have help. Ask people, ask your parents. I mean, this is not that complicated. And when I get to investments, what I'm going to tell you is 90% of your investment return doesn't come from picking the right stock. It just comes from being in the market, period. It's just asset allocation. That's where most of your return comes from. So everybody thinks I got to, find the next hottest investment. Not true. Okay? The important thing is just being in the market and being in there consistently. Here's a little math for you. Okay, think about this. $50 a week, not a ton of money. Okay, if I say $50 a week right after I get out of college, and it earns 8%, which is long-term less than the market has earned over the last 100 years, you'll accumulate $1 million. Just keep doing it. If you wait 8 years, you're only going to have half as much. That is just compounding. All right? Money that starts at age 22, it's got 40 plus years to grow. And the most important return on that money and the most important time that you see it double is the last time. Right? Not the first time. It won't feel like that when you start, but this is what happens. It just grows. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be that smart. You just have to start early and keep doing it. Okay? It's all about the math. It's just compounding. This is going to have more impact if you do the right thing and start in your 401k, learn to live off your net income in your first job, and you keep doing it. Everybody in this room, it doesn't matter how much you make, you will be fine. You will be absolutely fine when it comes to retirement. Okay? All right, savings. So I talked about retirement. That's probably the most important thing you got to do. Don't not do this, right? I don't know whether Social Security is going to be around in this country when you guys retire. Maybe it will be. It's politically tough to shut down. But you know what? The maximum Social Security benefit right now is $2,600 and change. Okay? $30,000 a year. So even if you contribute the max forever, it's not a ton of money. So you better assume you have to provide for yourself in retirement. Don't think the government's going to take care of you. Hopefully they'll supplement, and hopefully it'll still be around, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. The next thing that you should do is build an emergency fund. Okay? Every planner that you ever talk to in the world is going to tell you save 3 to 6 months of expenses. This is your rainy day fund. This is when the fridge goes out, the car breaks down, you name it. I need a new roof, the tree hit the roof, and insurance didn't cover everything. This is just for stuff that happens. It's just a really important thing to do. Okay, so that's where you start. Then you start thinking about other stuff, right? Then it's, okay, I need a car, I want to save for a house. I want to save for a vacation. Someday, my kids are going to get married and go to college. So there's all kinds of stuff that you're going to have to pay for. All right.
Hey, Dirk,
Yeah.
Where would you keep those for the 3 to 6 months? And
Yes.
Other things? Yeah.
Good question, right? That 3 to 6 months of expenses, just put it in a safe place where you can get at it instantly, right? So that has to stay in a short-term account. And today, you can actually do okay. I mean, the interest rates are at, lifetime lows for all of us old geezers. It's unbelievable how low interest rates are. But you can still go get a 1% account in a bank. There's lots of web-based banks out there that'll pay you 1%. That's where it should go, right? Just in a savings account. Because you don't want it to invest in something where you have principal risk and you have to sell it when you need it. You have to and take a loss, right? You want stuff that's not going to be at risk. So just put it in the bank. All right, let's talk about budgeting real quick. The first thing you got to do when you sit down and think about budgeting is you got to set some goals. Okay, they don't have to be complicated, but if it's just, well, for the future, I'm going to need it, think about, make it tangible. You get married and you say, you know what, in the next 5 years, I want to buy a house. That's a goal. It's a great goal. Right? So do the math, figure out what you're going to need for a down payment, and get started. Much easier when you have some real goals. Then be realistic. Do the math. Okay? It's going to hit you hard when you say you take that $50,000 job, which would be an awesome first job or even an awesome second job, right? And all of a sudden, wow, my net pay isn't really anywhere near $50,000 a year, right? Your net pay, depending on what you're going to save for and how much you're going to put away for retirement, might be 60 cents on the dollar. I always used to figure based on, I unfortunately used to live in very high tax states and had high marginal rates that usually it was not too much for me, more than 50 cents on the dollar. So it just adds up, right? Taxes add up. You don't think about it, but your federal income tax rate's pretty low at the beginning, right? Probably 10, 15%. Social Security, you're going to pay for a really long time. Unfortunately, right? That's 7% plus taxes. And, it's 7.65 to be specific. And there is a ceiling, so hopefully you can earn your way to the top of that ceiling and then you stop paying it, which is kind of nice. $118,500 this year, but it gets indexed up, keeps going. State taxes here in Michigan, we're at 4.25. There are states, you move to New York, you're going to pay more like 10. Illinois, it's even worse, right? Don't go to Chicago. Terrible place to live for a tax point of view. And then this, you're going to make up, decide what it's going to be. But you got to figure that out, right? What is my net pay going to be? And then I got to adjust to that. Right? Remember the first slide? Spend less than you earn. Okay? Now, there's going to be some things in life that don't come at you every week, every month. Some stuff does, right? My mortgage, groceries. But there's some things that are going to hit you that'll be a little bit bigger and only come once in a while, right? So early when you own a home, the mortgage company is going to figure some of those out for you. Stuff like property taxes, insurance on your house. Those are annual bills typically, or maybe twice a year bills. The mortgage company is going to force you to put escrow away and pay that every month. But there's other stuff that's going to hit you. Maybe your life insurance bill. That's probably once a year. There's other kinds of bills too. Your car insurance. Think about that one, right? Car insurance tends to be pretty pricey. That's usually once or twice a year. So put some money aside and put it in your budget and put it in the bank so that when the bill comes, you can pay it. Okay? Don't live on a cash basis. Live on an accrual basis for the accountants in the room. Okay. Okay? So setting up a revolving fund. A good way to take care of that is, hey, my one big bill a year is my car insurance bill. Man, $1,000 a year, $1,500 a year, big number, because I have, I'm a crummy driver. So, hey, let's just take whatever I need, $100 out of, a paycheck every couple times a month, and put that away, and then when time comes, money's in the bank to pay it. If you have never done this, go do it. Write down everything you spend for a month. You will be absolutely amazed at what you spend. You don't think about it, right? Oh yeah, that $4 at Starbucks. Boy, I did that 5 times this month. All of a sudden, $25 a month. That's halfway to your $1 million by putting that in the bank, right? You laugh, but it's true. If you don't write it down, you will not know. Now, some people, when they do budgets, it's really interesting. They use what's called an envelope system, right? They literally put, I got like a dozen envelopes. They put cash in there. This is what I'm going to spend on groceries, $200 a month. Take the cash out, go to the grocery store. Better keep looking at what's in that envelope and not overspend it. Otherwise, I don't eat the last week of the month. But that's one way to do it. All right. Credit. Is credit good or bad? Credit is generally a good thing, but it is a very dangerous thing, and it's hard to manage. Okay? In today's world, man, it's just so easy to use plastic for everything. But you do need it, right? There are people in the world that live without credit cards. You can do it. There's a few things that make things a little bit tough, right? You got to reserve a hotel room, or I got to rent a car, or I got to, there's some things in life that you're going to have to do that you kind of need a credit card. But it's pretty rare that you really need more than one. Now, I'd love to tell you that I only have one. I don't. But what I do is I milk the credit card companies, because they will give you some stuff if you're a good credit, and you can manage that pretty well. So, in my lifetime, I've had tens of thousands of dollars worth of value coming out of credit card companies. So, if you play the game, it works. Emergencies, reservations. Now, to own expensive products sooner, I'm not a real big fan of that one, but people do that. Now, think about that in terms of a car. Don't think about that in terms of a stereo. Okay, that doesn't mean go into the Apple store and buy the nicest Mac or whatever. What that means is there are certain big purchases that you really need. You probably need to drive to your first job. You probably do need a car or access to one. And so you know what? You maybe can't wait to save up and buy and pay cash for that car. That's okay. Right? That's okay. But you do have to figure out, can I manage that payment in my budget? Credit card companies do give you free credit, right? So when I walk into a store, I use my credit card, right? The merchant gets paid by my bank sends me a bill. Depending on when I make that charge and when I get that bill, I probably have a month, anywhere from a few days to as much as 6 weeks of credit, because I don't have to pay that until I get the bill, and then I usually have another couple weeks to pay the bill and so forth. So you do get free credit. The other thing credit card companies do is they do protect you, right? So if you get a bad product, you should go back to your merchant, but you can also go back to your credit card company. And there are some nice benefits, right? And of course, to obtain an education. Okay, here's the downside. It is so easy to get in over your head. Okay? It's going to reduce your flexibility. Interest adds up. Okay? Don't pay interest unless you're doing it with your eyes wide open. In my mind, the only time you should ever really pay interest for anything is on your mortgage and maybe on a car loan early in your life. That's it. Right? And some of that's subsidized, right? In the US, there's tax deductions for mortgage interest. It's a good thing. Number 3 is probably, again, one of the more important things out there. You will spend more money with a credit card than you will with cash. It is an absolute fact. If you don't have any credit cards and you're running around writing checks and paying with cash, you will spend 25% less than if you don't. Period. Full stop. There's all kinds of research on this. It's really interesting stuff. So go read it if you don't believe me. But I'm telling you, think about it. When you go in and you're going to buy something fairly significant, pay, whatever, $400 for your first new suit, boy, you're going to think hard about that if you walk in with $20 bills as opposed to your credit card. I'm telling you, it just works that way. I said to you guys earlier, everybody has a credit score. You guys today have a credit score. Very hard to get through college without something in your name. Where this comes from is anything that you get credit. Okay, you think about credit cards, but you get credit in lots of ways, right? A lot of people, their first real credit is from their utility company. Right? Never had a credit card, but hey, I had to call Mishcon and start paying a gas bill. You're establishing credit if you make those payments on time. Okay? The FICO score is the thing that often is looked at. There are some other measures out there. They range quite a bit. 850 is the absolute top, and they go pretty low. They go down to 300. Just to give you a sense of where people are, often somewhere between 620 and 650 is often a floor for you to be able to actually get a loan for many things. The median score out there in the US, 736. Bottom quartile, 620. You care about this. Here are the things that contribute to it. Do you pay your bills on time? How much do you owe? That can be for anything. Mortgage, car loan, credit card debt, you name it. How long is your history? So for example, have I had a mortgage for 20 years and I'm making payments? That matters a lot, right? Do I pay my credit card bills every month? If I continue to borrow, that's actually a good thing from a credit point of view, and sort of the type of credit that you use. The other thing that they look at a lot is the utilization. How kind of maxed out are you? So if I have a credit card limit of $1,000, am I charging right up to that all the time? If I do, my score will go down. Early in life, that's okay. How do you get good credit history? A few things, right? Have bank accounts. That establishes it. Build things in your name, right? A lot of times, maybe your folks are giving you money to handle your cell phone or covering utilities in a house that you rent. Put it in your own name. Get you started. Let them write a check to you. Start. You need a credit card. You need to develop a credit history so that when you get out of this place, you're not a blank slate, because it'll be hard.
Just a quick insert here. That's why when you're living off campus with roommates and your name is on that utility statement, good for you unless your roommates aren't filling your pocket with their share. Does that make sense? So if you're one of those roommates who's like a little behind in paying your friend for water, gas, electricity, you could be inadvertently hurting their credit, because if they're behind in payments and it's because of you, it's not your name being dragged out, it's their credit rating.
Yep.
Pay your friend.
Very good thing to do to go get a credit card. I almost guarantee you guys probably get this stuff in the mail, right? College students often are getting solicitations. Getting a credit card is a good way to establish history. Don't use it a lot, pay it off, but it's a good thing to do. And there's different types, right? A retail credit card would be, Kohl's or Macy's or something like that. Right? A bank credit card, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. That's what that means. You can take a short-term loan, probably not a good idea, but stay current on your student loans. Here's the reporting services, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. You can get your credit report free. Go take a look. See what your number is. Make sure there's nothing bad on your credit history. And there's all kinds of places to get these. You know, you see these, you know, guys singing on annualcreditreport.com and so forth. Credit Karma, there's all kinds of places to get it. You shouldn't have to pay for it. There's now laws been passed so that you can get it for free.
Does checking it more often make your credit score go down? Because I was like looking at mine once and it said that the number of times you did get your credit.
I don't think if you look at it yourself, what will affect it is if a bank goes in and grabs it, right? So if you apply for new credit, that'll affect it. But I don't think you looking at it yourself is a problem.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
Can you say something about being married and having things in your name versus your spouse's name should be balanced, or does something that's in both of your names impact it?
It really is a good idea to do stuff in at least something in both of your names.
Okay.
You know, most people do a lot of things jointly. That's fine. That's a good thing to do. But each spouse should have something in their own name just for this purpose, just to establish credit.
Okay.
Even if it's only, you know, one credit card or a couple credit cards, that's probably okay. Student loans. All right, how many of you guys know how much you owe today?
Too much.
Do you know how much it's going to cost you when you graduate? Have you done the math? Okay, good. Right? The good news is that, right, rates are as low as they've been in a generation. So that's the good news. The bad news is the numbers are probably a little higher for you than they were when I was in your seat. So, you know, the average person getting out of here, it's something like $25,000. We're a little underneath probably the national average. But a $25,000 loan that will amortize, I looked up kind of what the Stafford loans are these days, right? Depending on when you took your loans out, somewhere between $240 and $260 a month for 10 years if I have a $25,000 loan. Okay, so this is real money. It's going to affect you. So keep it down as much as you can, but pay it. Now, the good news is you can pay, obviously, you have a minimum you have to cover, but you can pay these off as you have the ability. You can add to them, right? You don't have to keep it out there for 10 years. Okay, so, and there's lots of options. You can consolidate them if you have multiple loans. You know, usually you have a grace period till 6 or 9 months after you're out of school, but the most important thing is pay them on time. Sometimes you can get a discount if you have direct debits hit your account. Consolidating loans is often a good idea. And sometimes there's some government plans for forgiveness depending on, you know, the kind of job that you take. Okay? Should you have a credit card? Yes, you should. I think everybody should have one. Once you get past that one, probably not a good reason to have too many more than that. But really be careful with this. Make sure that you're paying it off. Credit card fees are absolutely outrageous. And half the country here, actually a little over half the country, does not pay its credit card balances off every month. Those basically, depending on, you know, you can find some low interest ones. The lowest interest that you can possibly find is probably around 10%. But 90% of credit cards are probably somewhere between 18 and 35% annual interest. Okay? If you go out and get a mortgage today, you can get it for under 4%. Don't pay 30% on your credit card debt. It's just a really stupid thing to do. Okay? Just don't do it. And there are all kinds of other fees too, right? If I'm a day late, they're going to charge me $35 or $40 or something like that. Just don't do it. Now, some of this stuff is negotiable. You get into trouble, talk to your bank. Don't sit there and let it continue to accrue.
Yeah, on that point, Dirk, could you say we may have students here who are in way over their head, and they got there through a variety of means, some
Yep.
out of necessity. What would you say to them and say they're sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, I'm paying that percentage and I don't know how to get out?
Go to a credit counselor. Is a good thing to do. There are companies out there, they are in the business of helping you negotiate with your lenders and figure out how to work your way out of the hole. That's really the best thing to do. Get help. Don't sit there and just let it ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. All right, investing. I'm going to give you 30 seconds on investing, and I know we're about out of time. The most important thing is do it early, okay? Start early and just keep doing it. You do not have to be smart. As I said, 90% of your return comes from just being in the market in sort of the right percentage. And if you don't know, what most planners will tell you is take 100, subtract your age. That's a percentage that you should put in the stock market, put the rest in the bond market. If that's all you ever did in your life and you owned passive funds which just mimic indices and do nothing else, you'll be fine. You don't have to go figure out the next Apple. You just don't. If you want to and you want to learn about that, it's really fun. You can probably do better. You might be able to do better on your own, but you don't need to. Okay? Keep it simple. Don't try to time the market. Don't worry about the market. Right? The market's going to go up and down. That's just the way it is. Okay? It's just going to go up and down. Can I tell you when? No. I'd be a very rich man if I could, and so would lots of other people. So don't try to figure it out. Right? I mean, you can be smart. You can figure out trends. But mainly, don't try to come in and out. You want to have the right amount invested in the right kinds of assets. That's all that matters. Right? Invest in stuff you understand. Your buddy comes and says, oh, let's do this partnership that's going to invest in gold bullion, or whatever, or futures or options or something esoteric that you don't understand. Don't do it. If you don't know what you're investing in, don't do it. Very simple. You can learn about stuff very easily, but hey, the mutual fund market, exchange-traded funds, which are just mimicking the market, works for most people. And then fees. Fees add up, right? You're going to be invested in the market for the next 70 years, I hope, for you guys. The fees matter. So buy the stuff that's cheap. Go to the fund complexes, the Vanguards of the world that are charging you very little to invest. That's really important. Here's my last list, Bob, and then we're done.
Just while he's finishing, if you could put those yellow sheets, maybe just pass them to the side. We'll collect those and do the drawing right at the very end.
Okay? 60 seconds or less. Here we go. Develop a plan. Right? Set some goals and be specific. You will do a much better job of savings and thinking about this if you have some goals. Save regularly. As you earn more, don't spend it. Save it. If your employer pays you a bonus, use that as forced savings, not as an opportunity to go buy something fresh and new. Okay? Follow a budget. Keep your debt down, pay your credit cards, and participate in your retirement plan, right? Get that free $1,500, which is going to get more and more and more as you go. Comparison shop. Don't go out and buy the next shiny thing. Go do your research. That's what the web's for, right? Use a credit counselor. Get that emergency fund done. And planners are out there to help, right? So you can farm this out. You can not think about this too much if you want to pay for it. Okay? There's a quick tour, right? We did that in an hour. You can go, there's all kinds of resources out there, right? Popular Press, you can go take a Ramsey course, you can take an interim. Although I have a wait list that's ridiculous. I was told it's the first interim that closed, and I have 25 petitions, and I don't know what to do with them. So anyway, but it is a very good thing to do. It is a very good thing to do, right? If you can't do it here, do it somewhere. And you can just read on your own. So I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for coming.